Hello. In this session, we are going to discuss about some of the fine finishing processes that are usually taken up after grinding, and some of the dipping processes like electroplating, tin plating and metal spraying, etc., and then followed by organic coatings. So this session totally concentrates on some fine finishing processes that are taken up after grinding. So let us discuss about why the fine finishing processes are required. Now, as you can see this diagram, in this diagram there is a wear that is taking place due to the uneven spots left by grinding process, or even after grinding some of these spots are uneven. Those under a microscope can be observed like this. Now, when the parts slide with each other, the abrasive particles get accumulated and they mix with the lubricant and form a paste, and this paste acts as an abrasive particle and then tries to create wear and tear to the parts. So because of this wear and tear, even after grinding, this distance between the two parts will be increasing. That is the reason why we have to conform to the dimensional accuracy of the parts even after grinding. Now, what happens when this gap increases? Suppose if this is a bearing this is a shaft in a journal. So you all know what kind of tolerance is to be, or what kind of fit is to be obtained between the two. It should be a close tolerance. Now, after grinding, when you leave the shaft and bearing like that, because of this abrading action in the figure, the ply will take place between the two. That means the distance between the two increases and it creates a condition which is affecting the reliability of the service. So this needs to be corrected. That is the reason why we have to switch over to some of the fine finishing processes after grinding. Now, what are those fine finishing processes? There are basically three types of finishing processes. The first one is lapping, the second one is honing, and the third one is super finishing. So this lapping, honing and super finishing are the fine finishing processes. They bring excellent tolerance and accuracy, and also the type of fit that is required between the two parts. So let us study in detail about these processes one after the other. Now, lapping, you can see this. Lapping is an abrading process that is used to produce geometrically true surfaces, correct minor surfaces imperfections, improve dimensional accuracy, or provide a very close fit between two contact surfaces. So lapping is basically a metal removal process which is called an abrading process that is used to produce geometrically true surfaces. So the trueness, that whatever is required, it may be flatness, it may be roundness, whatever, that is obtained, and correct minor surface imperfections. So the minor surface imperfections which are observed even after grinding and also after honing, about which we are going to study a little bit after. So even the marks left by the tool after honing are corrected by this lapping. So and also it is used to improve dimensional accuracy or provide a very close fit between two contact surfaces. So this is the application, or rather the advantage of lapping. Now, what is that which is obtained by lapping? Very thin layers of metal, about 5 microns to 10 microns, you can see 0.005 mm to 0.01 mm are removed in lapping. In lapping, the microns that are the 5 microns to 10 microns material is removed. The lapping pressure is generally kept in a range of 0.01 to 0.2 newtons per millimeter square. Very small pressure is applied by the lapping stone on the surface to be lapped. So that's how it became a fine finishing process. Apart from this, there are also some other advantages. You can see this figure where lapping is being done on a machine. It's a lapping tool which may be machining the flat surfaces, maybe this tool may be applied on round surfaces also. In this figure you are seeing a flat surface which is being lapped. Like that you can also have different surfaces lapped. Now the surface toughness, it is not toughness, it is roughness obtained in the process is in the order of 0.05 to 0.4 microns. See, it is 0.04 to 0.5 to 0.4 microns, that is the surface roughness. You can see the glittering structure of the surface. Lapping is done by hand or by machine. So it can be done by both methods, by either hand or by machine. But hand lapping requires a lot of skill expected from the operator. In this particular diagram, you can see the surface obtained after lapping. This is a plate which is lapped, and you can see the shining structure after the lapping. So that is the excellency of lapping. So in this figure also, the cylindrical workpiece is getting lapped by using a lapping stone here. The stone is applied on and off onto the surface. The workpiece which is in the cylindrical form is rotating and the lapping stone is applied. The two types of feeds are given, longitudinal as well as cross feed. So this is how the cylindrical parts also get lapped on machines. So these are some of the advantages which you can observe on a lap. Now advantages of lapping. What are the advantages? The first advantage being less heat is generated and hence no distortion of the work surface. The work surface distortion will not be there after lapping, and also less heat is generated. The second advantage being process is suitable for any material, for ferrous, non-ferrous, ceramics, any other material, non-metallic objects also can be lapped to a very close tolerance system. So this is how the lapping is required for very fine accuracies. This is a diagram showing us of an engine where some of the area is lapped. You can observe the shining structure after the lapping. Here are some of the parts which are piston rods, the piston along with piston rod, these are the results of lapping. So you can see the shining or glittering structure there. Now what are the disadvantages of lapping? The disadvantages being the process is very slow and metal removal rate is very low. Very small amount of material is removed in lapping. That's why it is only used for correcting some surface imperfections. The material that is allowed will only be about 0.015 mm. That to that extent the material is, the machining allowance is only available in case of lapping. The second disadvantage being machining allowance amounts to 0.01 mm. So this is only the material that is available for us to create the required surface. So hence lapping, you should understand now, you might have understood that lapping is not a process for correcting the out of roundness or for correcting the axial or radial runout. It is only a surface corrective action which is observed after grinding and also after some fine finishing processes like honing. So this is the disadvantage. Now the third being hand lapping requires high operator skills. The operator skills required are very high in case of hand lapping because very small amount of material is remaining there for us to get the required structure. Now the process cost is also very high because tooling cost, the machine cost, and as the machining allowance is very small, the strain on the operator, all these contributing to a very high cost. These are some of the disadvantages of the lapping. Now where actually lapping is applied, the applications of lapping. Now for getting precise surface finishing on precision tools, gauzes, bearings, valves and valve seats. So all precision tools require finishing by lapping. All surface gauges or any kind of gauges, it requires lapping. All bearings and valve seats where lapping is extensively used. You can see this particular photograph where you are seeing plates which are used in the manufacture of our CDs, compact discs. You can see the glittering structure there. There is a close tolerance that is required to take out a CD from this die. These are actually dies which are used for the manufacture of CDs. Now you can also see this flat surface which is the result of lapping. So you can see the shining structure. So all the fine finishing processes leave shining or glittering or glossy structure after they do work on the surface. So this is how we can discuss about the lapping. Now coming to the second fine finishing process, that is honing. What is honing? Honing is an abrading process mostly used for finishing round holes by means of bonded abrasive stones called horns. Now in lapping, the abrasive stones are freely embedded in the lap. Lap is usually the material, maybe a metallic one or non-metallic one, like fine grained cast iron, on which the abrasive particles are embedded. But in lapping, the abrasive particles are freely embedded, but in honing they are bonded. That is why the difference you can observe here, it is using a bonded abrasive stones. That means it indicates that in honing the expected material removal is high, therefore the material allowance also will be high. So honing, you have to understand, when compared to lapping, removes more material. So these are called bonded abrasive stones, they are called horns. These horns are used especially exclusively for the purpose of machining internal operations like holes. It is the best process for finishing holes. So this is how we can understand honing. See this figure. In this figure, this honing tool, this is a spindle, these are honing sticks, we can say honing stones, they are supported by guides. All may be stones, all may not be stones because of different applications. Sometimes the stones are interlocked there, then you can see all the stones in one fashion. If they are separated, like you are having some number of stones and the remaining number will be guides which are guiding these honing stones. So you can see this honing tool for correcting the internal features. Now in figure B, this is how you can observe a horn. So honing sticks, these are sticks of various sizes and cross sections you can see. Now this figure correctly shows us how honing is done. This is a telescopic shaft for correcting the ply, or if the operation is to be done a little bit away from the axis of the spindle, that also is possible by this telescopic shaft. And this is the honing stick or honing tool, and this is the workpiece. The internal feature is getting corrected by using this honing. So this is a figure actually showing us how honing is done. Now we can have a close look at the honing tool. So this is a tool where you can see this honing stick, and this is a guide for honing stick. Two are all guides and one are all honing sticks. So these sticks may be braced to the honing tool, and then they are used for the purpose. Now what does this honing do? Depending upon the work material, honing speed may vary from 0.25 to 1 meters per second. So depending upon the composition of the work material, the honing speeds will vary. So the minimum being 0.25 meters per second to 1 meter per second. 0.1 mm of material can be removed from the surface. So when compared to lapping, you might have observed there 0.01 mm of material is allowable there to be removed, but here 0.1 mm of material can be removed from the surface. Honing process is in the range of 1 to 3 newtons per mm square. The pressure applied in case of lapping, you might have observed 0.02 to 0.05 newtons per mm square, but whereas in Horning the pressure is a little bit higher, which is between 1 and 3 newtons per millimeter square. The surface roughness obtained is in the order of 0.1 to 0.8 microns. So it's very less compared to the lapping. So the surface roughness is between 0.1 to 0.8 microns. So sometimes Horning also needs lapping. This is what we have to understand. Now here in this particular diagram you can see how the cylinders of a engine are getting horned. These are the cylinders and this is the horning tool. Some lubricant is also used there, and there this is a horning tool correcting the cylinder bore. So one after the other the cylinders are getting corrected. So this is the diagram. Here it is written, once the new sleeves are in, we then power horn the cylinders to the proper clearance. Again precision machine work. So once the cylinder comes into action, the horning tool comes and does the action, and then the next cylinder comes. Like that, depending on the number of cylinders, all the cylinders can be machined. So that's how we can understand by this diagram how horning is done. This is another diagram, line diagram, showing us how horning is done. This is the horning tool and the feed is given to the horning tool. Its horning tool is reciprocating, and this is workpiece, and these horning tools here, horns are fixed to the horning tool, and this there is a spring action between the two. It automatically corrects the distance between the workpiece inside diameter and itself. That is the reason why in most of the cases we use telescopic shafts for horning. So this is the top view of the horning tool working in a hole. Now this is another diagram where a horning tool is used. Now this is a workpiece, this is a horning tool rotating, and the feed is given. By this diagram also we can understand how horning can be done. Now the advantages of horning. The first advantage being, holes of any diameter or length can be finished. So there is no restriction on either diameter or on the length of the part. The second advantage being high productivity and low cost compared with other hole finishing methods. Productivity will be high. So with least strain and input we can get higher amount of output, that is what is called productivity, and low cost compared with other hole finishing methods. Especially when it comes to hole finishing methods, horning is the best one to be selected. The faster and more accurate than internal grinding. Internal grinding also is a fast process, but it is even more faster and more accurate than internal grinding. This particular diagram shows us again how this horning is done. You can see in this diagram very clearly, this is the horning sticks. It is fixed to the tool, and these horning sticks, they get inside, they go inside, this is a lubricant, and they automatically adjust in the hole. So there is a spring action there, or the telescopic shaft will create such correctness, and thereby the machining is done by rotating this tool, and the feed is given up and down like that. So that's how especially the cylinders of IC engines or any other surfaces which are round especially will be horned. Now in this diagram you can see various types of horning tools, horning sticks rather. So they are in various sizes, you can see. Now in horning the material removal is more. That is the reason why you all have understood one fact while studying about grinding, that for very small material removal the grit size should be very high, very fine grit should be used, like about 500 to 600 grain size must be used. For removing very hard material, very high amount of material, the grit size should be reduced. So automatically this is also applicable to horning sticks and also lapping sticks. Now the disadvantages of horning. It is not suitable for horning of tough non-ferrous metals due to glazing or clogging of the pores of the abrasive sticks. So the abrasive sticks get clogged by the non-ferrous metals which are usually soft, and also from that category also it is to be a tougher one. So the honing is not applicable for a tough and non-ferrous metals. They usually glaze or clog. That means they get embedded, they get clogged. It's something like tool clogging. So the honing tool gets clogged. That is the reason why this is not applicable on tough and non-ferrous metals. That is only the disadvantage, except that all are advantages only. So where this honing is applied, applications: the gun barrels, bearings, holes, valve guides, diesel engine cylinder bore, hub holes in gear and gearbox, etc., where in all these areas the honing is mostly applied. So if you closely observe all these things, it is nothing but an internal feature. Gun barrels, valve guides, all these things are internal features. So this is a diagram showing us how the part looks after honing. The internal honing is done here. So the parts are now can be observed. Now in this diagram various honing tools can be seen. This is a photograph depicting various honing tools. So these are all various equipment required for fixing the honing stick. You can also see honing stick here, and these are various accessories required for fixing this tool to the spindle. Now what is super finishing action? That is the next after honing. So super finishing action. Super finishing action can be understood as an operation using bonded abrasive stones in a particular way to produce an extremely high quality of surface finish in conjunction with an almost complete absence of defects in the surface layers. I repeat this, it is an operation using bonded abrasive stones in a particular way to produce an extremely high quality of surface finish in conjunction with an almost complete absence of defects in the surface layers. So the one peculiar phenomena that is observed in surface super finishing is the stick, where very fine grit is used as an abrasive. When the stick is applied onto the surface, it conforms to the surface features. So that is the advantage of super finishing. So the stick conforms automatically when it is applied to the surface, it conforms to the complexity or to the feature of the surface. So surface finishing is again obtained by using an abrasive stick. In this diagram you can see this is an abrasive block which has to reciprocate over the surface. This is the workpiece. So it is a cylindrical surface, so which is to be super finished. So abrasive block is pressed against this surface. Initially the stick may be rectangular one, but after pressing it may take the shape of the surface. So the some very small spring pressure is being applied, and then reciprocation also is done if the length is more or the surface length is more. So this is a simple principle of surface finishing. Here in this diagram you are seeing a cylindrical surface. In this diagram flat surfaces are getting super finished. So this is a spindle rotation where some abrasive cup wheel is used, and hydraulic pressure or spring pressure will be applied from the top so as to give feed to the workpiece. So it will rotate. So lower spindle rotation, the spindle also can be rotated. This is how flat surfaces can also be super finished. Now this is another diagram showing us how the pressure is applied. So the pressure here may be hydraulic pressure, may be spring pressure, so any form of pressure can be applied here, and then this is the workpiece which is getting super finished. So this is a machine fixture showing us how the stone is fixed and how the pressure is applied by using a lever onto the work surface. So these are all various arrangements for taking up the super finishing. This diagram also shows us how more than one super finishing sticks can be used. Here you can see in the end view there are two sticks which are in use. They have to reciprocate to and fro motion on the cylindrical workpiece. So this, by this way you can reduce the machining time or super finishing time. So this diagram shows us how the parts are being observed after the super finishing action. These are all the parts of internal combustion engines. So various casings. Like that we can understand what super finishing is. Let us now go into further details. A very thin layer of material is removed. It is about 5 microns to 20 microns material is removed. 0.005 mm to 0.02 mm material is very much removed. It is used to obtain very high surface finish of the order of 0.05 to 0.2 microns. So, very high surface finish, glittering structure again will be obtained. The material removal is very small, and hence the surface quality also will be very high. Parts made from cast iron, steel or non-ferrous metals can be super finished. So, super finishing can be applied to almost all materials. So, these are some of the details. Now, in this diagram you can see how the parts observe after super finishing. So, this is the result. You can see your image on the surface. Now, a very fine grit abrasive is used in super finishing. So, a very fine grit abrasive is used. The very fine grit, you know why it is required, because it is removing very small amount of material, therefore, it is a finishing action. The work rotating speed is 2 to 20 meters per minute. So, you might have recollected what is the kind of rotating speed in honing. It is not even 1 meter per second, 0.1 to 1 meters, that is what we have studied little earlier. Now, this is 2 to 20 meters per minute, this is the work rotating speed. The longitudinal feed is 0.1 to 0.15 mm per work revolution. So, very small amount of feed is given for every work revolutions. So, the number of work revolutions can be between 400 to 500, 800 rpm or even more than that also. So, this is how the honing can be done, the super finishing can be done. Now, the applications of super finishing. It is used for finishing computer memory drums, sewing machine parts, automobile cylinders, brake drums, bearings, pistons, piston rods and clutch plates. So, almost all engineering parts require super finishing action, especially when they are used in a very complex situation, they need to undergo super finishing action. So, here is the diagram showing us how the parts are observed after super finishing. You can see all these parts are required for an IC engine. These are piston rings you can see here, and these are gaskets, and this is the casing, this is the rim. So, all these are super finished before they are assembled. This is another diagram showing us how super finishing leaves the final surface. You can see the shining surface on all the parts. These are some of the applications of super finishing. Now, the surface coatings. What do you mean by a surface coating? So, the glittering structure is obtained after super finishing and also honing and lapping, but there are some characteristics that need to be obtained on the surface. Keeping that in mind, some surface coatings are also required. Let us go into those details. So, what is a surface coating? It is a surface finishing which improves the quality and appearance of surface of metallic objects. It not only improves the quality, but also brings appearance of the surface. That is the advantage of surface coating. An aesthetic sense, an aesthetic look will be obtained on the surface. That is how the surface appears very much attractive, and that is what is called appearance of the surface. This is also obtained by this surface coating methods. Now, what these surface coatings are given for? What for they are to be applied? We study about them. Now, for improving the functional properties of work process such as hardness, heat resistance, wear and corrosion resistance. So, these are all the properties that you can obtain. It not only increases the hardness, it not only provides the heat resistance, it also provides wear resistance and also the corrosion resistance. All these are obtained by these surface coatings. It also provides a decorative as well as fine finish to the metal surfaces. So, it gives a final decoration, embellishment. So, it embellishes or decorates the final surface. So, to rebuild worn or undersized parts, yes, surface coatings can bring good appearance. Therefore, the worn out parts or parts which are to be rebuilt also can be subjected to surface coating process. So, this is how surface coating can be taken up. Some of the surface coating methods are electroplating, hard dipping, galvanizing. Under hard dipping you have galvanizing and tin coating and porchorizing, and third is anodizing. So we have electroplating, hard dipping, under hard dipping again galvanizing, tin coating, porchorizing, and third one is anodizing, and the next one is metal spraying. Metal spraying again will be wire method and powder method. So these are some of the surface coating methods. Now here firstly we study about electroplating. What is electroplating? So in all electroplating processes a protective coating is applied by electrolysis action. It is mainly depending on theory of electrolysis that electroplating is done. So the material of the substance that is going to be deposited depends on the current density which is flowing through the electrolyte. That is how the electrolysis law is defined. So based on this law of electrolysis the electroplating is done. So you can see this figure diagram which shows us the arrangement for electroplating. Here this is the object to be plated, this is a pure silver. So whatever material that is required to be coated, that material is given the treated as anode, and the part to be plated is treated as cathode. Now the electrolyte is silver nitrate solution here, as silver is going to be coated. So precious metals like gold and platinum also can be coated by this method. Now what happens when you give some current density, AC or DC can be used, but usually DC current has given good results by deeper penetration. That is why DC is being used extensively. Now DC, when some current is flowing through this electrolyte, what happens? The electrolyte releases the silver ions, and the silver ions because they are positive ions, they get attracted to the cathode and deposit, and they lose their charge when they touch this surface, and they are deposited as silver particles. To balance the concentration of the electrolyte from silver plate, the silver ions are getting embedded, that are passing into the solution. So this is how the concentration of the electrolyte is being maintained. So the coating thickness and the surface quality depends on current density and also on the time that is taken for this particular electrolysis process. So excellent coating structure can be obtained after electroplating. Here is the diagram showing us the parts, how excellent they are after electroplating. Another advantage of electroplating is complex parts also can be coated. This is a valve, you can see the valve getting electroplated at the end. It is a very shining surface. So its appearance also is very excellent. You can see various complex objects here whose shape is entirely different from one another. They are different in their shape. All of them are getting electroplated. This is the result of electroplating. The surface is coated with that material. Now what is hot dipping? What is hot dipping? In hot dipping, in that process the coating, the base metal is used by dipping it in molten metal bath. It is a process of coating the base metal by dipping it in the molten metal bath. So the part to be coated is dipped in the molten metal bath, thereby the material is deposited on the surface of the plate. So the first method being galvanizing. What is galvanizing? It is the process of producing the zinc coating on iron or steel by dipping, that is by immersion of iron or steel articles in molten bath of zinc. So the zinc bath will be there. So in that bath the steel or iron parts are dipped or immersed. So depending on the time and also the temperature of the bath, so the required coating is obtained. So this is how galvanizing can be defined. Now further details. Work surface must be cleaned by pickling. So before the part is subjected to galvanizing, it must be cleaned thoroughly. Pickling is nothing but dipping it in a suitable acid for removing and degreasing the surface. So fluxed, after pickling the parts are fluxed by immersing the material in a solution of zinc chloride. The parts must be fluxed, it is very much necessary, otherwise the oxidation takes place. And also this flux favors or creates the environment whereby the coating material will get deposited on the plate very effectively. These are the advantages of using a flux. The articles are dipped in the molten bath at about 450 degrees centigrade. So, this is how in steps this galvanizing is done. So, very much required is pickling. So, the basic process of pickling you can see here. Here are some of the sheets, they are being dipped in an acid, suitable acid. Usually sulfuric acid or hydrochloric acids are used for removing any dust and also grease particles on the surface of the plates. So, these are plates which are dipped and they are subjected to pickling. Now, the thickness of coating layer is controlled by the time and temperature. Naturally, in this kind of method, that is hard dipping, the thickness of coating layer is controlled by the time. The more the time, the higher will be the thickness. But when you keep it for very higher time, naturally the material becomes brittle, thereby further bending and forming of the coated part will be a difficult task. Therefore, there is a restriction on the upper side of the time and also of temperature. So, correct time and temperatures are chosen for the required application. Now, coating thickness varies from 0.025 mm to 0.3 mm. So, coating thickness is varying between 0.025 mm to 0.3 mm, and there are some industries like Uttam Galva Steels which provide a tolerance of about 20 microns on between this range, that is 0.025 to 0.3 mm. If this is the coating thickness that is required, they are able to provide this thickness within a tolerance zone of about 20 microns. So, that is their greatness. Now, there are uses. What are the uses of this hard dipping process, that is galvanizing? It is used for pipes, fence wire, nails, roofing, sheet metal products. So, all these types of parts are galvanized. You can see this diagram where brake shoes are galvanized. These are all number of brake shoes, they are galvanized. Now, this is another diagram showing us where a sheet is subjected to galvanizing and it is wound ready for takeoff, that is for dispatch. So, this is the sheet which is subjected to galvanizing. Now, this is another diagram showing us how the sheet is collected after the galvanizing process. So, that is the application of galvanizing. Now, tin coating. What is meant by tin coating? The sheet steel is first cleaned. Before the sheet is to be tin coated, it is to be cleaned. Then it is passed into a bath of molten tin at a temperature of 310 degrees centigrade. So, it is passed into a bath of 310 degrees centigrade. The thickness of the layer can be 0.0025 mm. So, this is the thickness of the layer. Usually, tin coating is obtained for food preservation. So, which avoids any contamination of the surface, inside surface, and poisoning effect on the food. So, this is how the tin coating is exclusively applicable for food containers and tins where food is getting preserved, and also it is employed for cans for food and kitchen utensils. For kitchen utensils also this tin coating is very much applicable. You can see some of the parts which are coated by tin. Now, parkerizing. What is parkerizing? Parkerizing is a process of providing phosphate coating on work surface. By hard dipping, phosphate coating serves as a base for enamel and paints. Sometimes we need to paint a particular surface by either an enamel or a varnish or an organic coating is to be given to that. So, by this action called parkerizing, this makes the surface suitable for further organic coating. That is the purpose of this parkerizing. So, that is why it is a process of providing phosphate coating on work surface. By hard dipping, phosphate coating serves as a base for enamel and paints. So, before painting a particular surface, we need to take up this parkerizing. Parts are to be cleaned. Obviously, the parts are required to be cleaned before they are subjected to parkerizing. This is an engine part where it is subjected to parkerizing and it is ready now for further organic coating, like by a lacquer or an enamel or by any other organic coating. So, this is how this is parkerized. You can see this particular diagram. Now, in parkerizing, the part is dipped in a solution of manganese dihydrogen phosphate. So, it is a solution which is maintained at a temperature of 90 degrees centigrade. provides corrosion protection. It also provides corrosion protection to the surface. And further organic coating gives this an aesthetic appearance and attractive appearance. So this is how we can understand what this coating is. That is applications. What are the applications of Parkerizing? Phosphate coatings are widely employed on industrial appliances such as automobiles, washing machines, refrigerators. Yes, refrigerators, when they are built with sheets, galvanized sheets, you can again subject them to phosphate Parkerizing before they are painted. Similarly, automobiles, outer covers and washing machines, all these are the various appliances where Parkerizing is needed to be applied. Now, anodizing. What is anodizing? It is a process of producing oxide film aluminum bars. It is not bands, it is bars. So, aluminum is the metal where painting becomes a difficult task because the surface itself is a slippery one. So, this is to be subjected to a process called anodizing, where an oxide film is provided on the surface of aluminum, which makes it suitable for further action like transforming it into a furniture form or getting some painting on it. So, it is used on aluminum both for decoration and for protection of the base metal. So, for decoration as well as for the protection of the base metal, this anodizing is used. The film is produced by electrochemical reaction. So, electrochemical reaction is the basic principle involved in anodizing, whereby the film is produced on the surface of the part. Now, this diagram you can see. In this diagram, the part to be anodized is in the form of a ring, and this is a lead strip. Both are connected to a DC power supply, and there is a electrolyte. So, now when the current is passing through this electrolyte, the electrolyte diffuses, and by this electrochemical reaction, the oxygen that is obtained will be formed on the surface of the anode. So, that is the part to be anodized. That is why some oxide film is getting obtained on the aluminum. So, the thickness of the oxide film and the rapidity of formation depends on the current density and also the temperature. Low temperatures leave a favorable environment for getting more and more thickness. Like for example, 3 degrees centigrade, if it is the temperature of the electrolyte, about 0.15 mm of oxide film can be obtained. If the temperature is 30 degrees centigrade, then no anodization takes place. So, no surface coating is obtained. So, it should be less than 30 degrees. That is how at low temperatures we can obtain very high coatings on the surface of aluminum. So, you can see in this diagram some of the results of anodizing. These are the parts, you can see the color, some pigments also are added. So, these are different applications. This is the result of anodizing. You can now we can understand about, we can try to understand about applications. Aluminum furniture and utensils are mostly applicable. This process is applicable to aluminum furniture, and some architectural shapes which are needed to be obtained, some fixture frames and a good base for painting, especially for aluminum. So, otherwise aluminum painting is difficult. So, before that it is subjected to anodizing, and then it may be painted further. So, here are some of the diagrams showing us what is the effect of anodizing. These are all aluminum tubes and aluminum discs, which are after anodizing they appear like this, and this is the diagram, already we have discussed about it. And now the metal spraying. Metal spraying, what is metal spraying? It is used to furnish a protective coating on base metal. Again, in this also, on the base metal the material is furnished. The surface of metal is coated with truly divided particles of metal. In the diffused form or in the atomized form, the material is getting deposited on the surface of the part. So, that is being done in metal spraying. So, metal spraying is done by melting a metal in an oxygen flame and blowing it from the nozzle of a spray gun. So, in an oxygen flame the metal is melted and it is blown from the nozzle of a spray gun. So, that is how in an atomized form the particles of this metal are getting deposited onto the surface of the part. So, metal spraying is done basically by two methods. The first method being wire method, the second one is a powder method. So there are two methods, wire method and powder method. In this diagram you can observe how powder method can be done. This is a powder, through a hopper it is being fed to the area where some compressed gas is released, and also this is a way for a fuel gas for burning, and this is the nozzle. Now here in the nozzle area the powder is getting combusted, the gas, the fuel gas is combusted, and the powder is being dragged by the aspirating gas, which is a compressed air, and then this is thrown out in the atomized form or a spray stream, so onto the surface. So now you can see this is a coating sprayed material, and this is the background is nothing but the prepared material. So this is how in the atomized form this gets deposited on the surface of the part. This shows how powder metal spraying is done. This diagram shows us what is wire method. So this is a wire which is being fed by a mechanical means or hydraulic means, and now this is one is a route for the flue gases, oxy gases which may enter, and 2 is for compressed air, and this fuel gas will burn here, melting this rod, and this compressed air will throw it, atomize this material into the environment. That's how it comes. It is in the scattered form, this atomized part, and the particles will get deposited on the surface. So this is how the wire method also is obtained. So wire method is mostly done. Why? Because most of the metals in metal spraying are available in the wire form than in the powder form. Powder form is a little bit costlier one. Now this diagram shows us how metal spraying is carried out. So he is just spraying the metal onto the part. Now what are the applications of this metal spraying? Application of aluminum and zinc on iron and steel surfaces to protect against corrosion. So aluminum and zinc are the two basic metals which can be just applied onto iron and steel parts to protect them against corrosion. Hard facing on soft material surfaces to resist wear and abrasion. Soft material surfaces can be made hard by atomizing the hard materials onto their surface, and that's how they can be given resistance against wear and abrasion. So this is a car which we are seeing in its this is ready for metal spraying. After some time you can see in what form the car will be available to us. Copper is sprayed on non-metallic parts to render them solderable and to increase the conductivity. So see the excellency of metal spraying. Copper is sprayed on non-metallic parts. So non-metallic parts may be made conductive by spraying copper onto their surface to the required thickness, and to make them suitable for soldering and to increase the conductivity of the parts. Now you can see this car after it is metal sprayed. This is how it appears after the metal spraying is done. Now what is surface preparation? Surface preparation is done by sandblasting and also by machining. So this is very much required before the parts are subjected to metal spraying. So excellent surface finish is very much required before we take the part to metal spraying. So what is sandblasting? What is machining? In blasting is of two types: by fine grit sharpened metal particles, that is one form of material that is used in blasting, or silica granules also can be used in blasting. If silica is used, it is called sandblasting. If metal blasting, it is called. Some machining action also is required to be done. So these are the two basic surface preparation methods that we have. Now in this case you can see this part is sandblasted. So using a compressed air, the granules of sand are getting bombarded onto the part, thereby the parts are getting surface cleaned. Here is another diagram. In a car, on a particular part, the blasting is being done by either a sand or by a fine grit metal. Now this is a part, you can see this is a engine cylinder part. There are various cylinders here. Before the blasting work is done, this appears like this. Now after the blasting is over, you can see this diagram. This is the surface that is obtained after the blasting is over. Now these are basic surface cleaning processes. Now we come to organic coatings. What is an organic coating? What is an organic material after all? Organic material is that material which is obtained from living organisms, like you can have the excretion or secretion of insects, whale oils. So all these living organisms, whatever is produced. Cotton is obtained from a living organism by some excretion of an insect. This is an example. So like that, whatever is obtained by a living organism, it is called an organic material. So such organic coatings are very much required to be given onto the surface for getting the required characteristics. What are they? The organic coatings are used to provide a decorative as well as a protective finish to the metal surface. The main function of organic coatings are, so what are the main functions of these organic coatings? Protection of material against corrosion and weathering. Weather effects are nullified when you give an organic coating, and also corrosion resistance will be improved on the surface. That is the excellency of organic coatings. Some of the characteristics that are obtained out of organic coating are improvement of visibility. So it is very clearly visible. Better reflectivity, the surface reflects. Improvement of appearance, so very good excellent appearance outlook is obtained. Provide electrical and thermal insulations. So the conductors can be given organic coating whereby they can be made insulators. Sealing of process castings and weldments. Sometimes the weldments and castings are required to be sealed where welding is not required to be done, or where the material is not required to be to occupy the place. So thereby we can give these organic coatings. Here is a diagram showing us the organic coatings, which are basically paints that are being applied. Now what are the following materials are widely used for organic coatings? What are the materials? The first one is oil based paints, second one being lacquers, third one is varnish, fourth one is enamels, and the fifth one is bituminous paints. In bituminous paints, any organic coating contains three main ingredients. There are three ingredients mainly that you observe in any organic coating. What are they? The pigments, the vehicle, and the dryer. So what are these? Pigment, vehicle, and dryer. Pigments have their effect on appearance and color. So to get the required color on the surface, we need to add pigment. So cotton or nitrocellulose, which is a naturally obtained pigment from cotton, is an example for a pigment. So they have their effect on appearance and also on color. They also improve desirability, and not desirability, it is durability and strength of the film. So the durability of the film and the strength of the film can also be improved by using these pigments. Now the vehicle, what is a vehicle? It contains a binder that forms the film and holds the pigments. So the pigments which give color, they are to be held. So that holding action is done by the vehicle. So the vehicle forms a bond between the pigments. Now what is a dryer? It acts as a catalyst to harden the film after it has been applied. So once the film is applied on the surface, it is to be hardened, it is to be evaporated, leaving behind the pigments. Thereby a dryer is also very much required, which is basically a solvent. So that's how the three ingredients that are required. Now we study about oil based paints. It consists of linseed oil as vehicle. So this seed oil is obtained out of some seeds. White lead or red lead as pigments, and thinner, which is a turpentine, which is a byproduct of petroleum, is used as a solvent. So these are the three: vehicle and pigment and the solvent, so which are used in oil based paints. What are lacquers? Lacquers, they are quick drying coatings. They are quick drying coatings. They have lower coverage. Coverage area will be very small, and the durability of the film is poor. So lacquers are nothing but a solutions of film with a natural or artificial resin. So you can see in this diagram the final shape and appearance obtained after lacquering. You can see these are all the decorative parts. This is the result of lacquer. This is a lacquer gift box. So this is the color pigmentation is given here. So this is the result of lacquer. Now the lacquer bottles also you can see, which are available for various applications. Now varnish. What is varnish? It is a resin dissolved in oil and doesn't contain any pigments. So that's why varnish is colorless. Pigments, when they are there, you can get any type of color you want. So this is the resin where there are no pigments. It produces hard film which can give toughness and durability. It is used for vehicle finishes. So all vehicle finishes will be obtained by a varnish. So varnish, since the Egyptian era, for preservation of mummies, the boxes which were used, the inside coating was given by varnish. There are evidences. That's why varnish has been from the antiquity, we can say. So here are the diagrams where you can see varnish application. This is on wood after the varnish coating is given. This is how it appears, and this is another application, boat made of wood. After varnishing, this is how the surface can be obtained, giving it aesthetic sense and also the protection from water and also from any acids. That is how we can understand. What are enamels? Enamels, these are basically varnishes in which pigments are added. Enamels are the basically varnishes where pigments are added. They provide a more harder and more abrasive resistant coating. Enamels provide excellent resistance coating, abrasive resistant coating. So they are used on automobile parts, electrical and domestic appliances. For domestic appliances also they are used. So these are the products made out of enameling. So after the application of enamel, these are the fancy items. You can see this is a kettle and these are the cups, and this is the excellency of enameling. So after enamel, this pot appears glittering and shining and glossy surface is obtained on after enameling. Now bituminous paints. Bituminous paint is a coal tar dissolved in a solvent. It's bituminous coal powder, which is called coal tar, is dissolved in a solvent. So why it is required? It is required for providing high resistance to water. So where some parts are immersed in water for a longer time, there corrosive problems take place. So there, for effective functioning, this bituminous paint is very much required. You can see this is a boat, and where the bottom of the boat is given a bituminous paint. Usually the paint will be black in color. There are very limited colors that are obtainable, and this black pitching we can call it, so protects it from water, as this spot is immersed in water for a longer time. Now this is the bituminous paint effect. Now rubber based coatings. These coatings consist of rubber dissolved in solvent, used for protection reasons and decorative purpose. So rubber coated, that means the rubber involved in the solvent, then it is called rubber based coating. The important types of rubber based coatings are chlorinated rubber, neoprene, hypalon. So chlorinated rubber, halosulfonated cellulose is the basic element which is used in chlorinated rubber. So this has very limited colors and limited applications. But when you come to neoprene and hypalon, they have excellent applications. Now you can see diagrammatically in how the neoprene is applied. These are all the cold boxes or bags which are given neoprene coating. Neoprene is a kind of organic coating that is obtained. Now you can see this is a neoprene layer which has excellent hardness, which can be subjected to even high pressures also. So neoprene coating gives us hardness. You can see the seating in a vehicle. This is giving it excellent resistance against acids, solutions and also other compounds. So this gets. Now the next application, you can see they are covered with some equipment. So underwater applications also are applicable. Neoprene based jackets can be used for swimming at a higher depths in the sea also. Now next is hypalon. Hypalon, which is different from neoprene in a way that it is having excellent thermal resistance, that is it is can be applied successfully between 60 to 150 degrees centigrade. So at 150 degrees centigrade also it becomes very hard and retains its properties. This is a sheet showing us a hypalon sheet. You can see this hypalon sheet here. Hypalon coated sheet. Now you can see the building which is totally given a Hypalon coating on the top and also on the sides. So energy saving to a larger extent is done, which is an alarming factor of late all over the world. So energy saving is very much possible by using a Hypalon coating because it is extremely thermal resistant. So this is a figure. Again, the total top cover of this stadium is given a Hypalon coating. It not only brings out excellent look, also gives it thermal resistance. So this is how we can understand about the organic coatings. Now in this class we have discussed about what are the fine finishing methods, then we have come to various surface coating methods and also various organic coating methods.